Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Facade Focus Podcast, where I aim to connect the global facade industry by sharing knowledge and experience from others to learn from. Over the coming weeks, I'll be interviewing leaders and industry experts across the world to discuss common challenges we all face and the innovative solutions helping to move the industry forward. This week, I'm joined by Syndi Sim, Director of Sales and Business Development at Q-Railing North America, and one of the most visible and influential advocates for women in the glass and glazing industry. Syndi's story is a brilliant one. She didn't start in glass, she came from the broader AEC world. She stepped into glazing with zero experience and built everything from the ground up. Across 13 years, she's worked with fabricators, suppliers, and now directly with the glazing community, all while building one of the strongest personal brands in the industry. She credits her rise to mentorship from both men and women, and now sees it as her responsibility to give that same support to the next generation. In this episode, we're diving into a really important topic: the role, impact, and advancement of women in glass and glazing. We discuss the visibility gap in the C-suite, the stigma facing women actually entering the trades, and the lack of formal mentorship. It's an honest, energizing, and much needed conversation for anyone who wants to see this industry evolve. Now, a quick shout out to our podcast partners, Architectural Glass and Aluminum, an employee-owned business with over 55 years of curtain wall experience. They have truly innovative people, iconic projects, and you won't find another curtain wall contractor like AGA. They're based in California with multiple offices and slowly expanding across the country. All right. Let's get into this week's episode of the Facade Focus Podcast with Syndi Sim. Syndi Sim, welcome to the Facade Focus Podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's an honor to be on your show.
Excellent. Well, I've given you a bit of an introduction already, so I'll give you the floor because I'm sure it will be far better coming from you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, and what got you here.
Well, thank you, Tom. My name is Syndi Sim. I am the Director of Sales and Business Development at Q-Railing North America. I've been in the industry 13 years, and gosh, I cannot believe it has been that long. I have been incredibly fortunate in my career. I came in to a smaller company in the industry, not knowing anything about glass and glazing. Zero.
Wow.
Having worked in civil engineering firms in the past, within the AEC world, but never specifically within glass and glazing. And from day one, I put myself out there. I started meeting people. I started engaging in opportunities. I saw the people I wanted to create relationships with. I made a very conscious effort to learn as much as possible. And throughout my time, I have had tremendous mentorship from both men and women in glass and glazing. And it really just allowed me to continue my journey of learning. And so about a little over a year and a half ago, I was talking with Q-Railing, and I had a tremendous opportunity to join their team. And I'm thrilled that I made the decision, because what it's doing is it's allowing me now to work with the glazing community. For gosh, a little over 11 years, I worked with glass fabricators, and that was truly my customer base. Now I've made the change to the to the glazer, and it has been tremendous. And so I have been fortunate, again, as I say, along the way, to have really made a name for myself, but only because of the people in the industry. I owe so much to so many folks out there that continue to guide me on this journey. And I'm incredibly lucky to be at Q-Railing and representing that brand and what we can bring to the industry. But overall, that has been my journey for almost 13 years.
Wow, fantastic. I must say as well, a lot of people talk about luck, and, some people are lucky. And I think I've seen you on LinkedIn, just for a start. I think you put a lot of great stuff out there. So I think you kind of make your own luck. to a certain degree. So great job in putting the right message out. And clearly, you're a great communicator. That comes across from all the LinkedIn posts. So I love that. So we've got an interesting topic to talk about today, which we discussed off camera, which is slightly different to the typical Facade Focus podcast. But I'm super keen to get into it because I think it's an important message and something that we need to talk about. So I'll give the floor back to you again. What are we talking about today, Syndi?
Thank you again, Tom. I want to highlight the importance of women in glass and glazing. And since I started, I have seen a general consensus and increase in the promotion of women within our industry. Yeah. And there's a lot of good happening within women within glass and glazing. But I also want to note that too often I see executive teams, I see C-suite without any women in it. And what I feel like so many of us have done on a really positive note is try to elevate the women in our industry. Yeah. So more recently, we started, so I'm part of the California Glass Association, and we started a committee for women in glass. And I'm incredibly proud of the moment, the opportunity that the women in California are creating for themselves. Then on a national level, the CEO of the National Glass Association is a woman, and the majority of that staff is women. I'm also proud to say that at Q Railing, 50% of the executive team are women. So I do see a lot of positivity with the understanding that women play a tremendous role on a management level, on a glazer level, out in the field, in the factory, on the plant floor. There's so much opportunity for women. I am just here to really drive home that on a not only a domestic level, but on a national level. So I appreciate you giving me the platform to talk about how to really help women elevate in this industry.
Absolutely. Where do you think the disconnect is? Because, all of the females that I've spoken to within our industry, absolute rock stars at what they do at all levels. That's whether they're project engineers or coordinators at a glazer or, a pre-construction executive, at whatever level they're in. They seem to be great communicators, very eloquent. They know their stuff. Where's the disconnect, do you think, between the C-suite and getting more women into those rooms?
Well, I actually think it's not just within our industry. I think it's a stigma within the AEC community. So within the architectural, engineering, construction industry on a broader level, there is a stigma about women going into construction. Then when you go into our specific glass and glazing and the trades, let's call it, there is, again, there's a stigma around women going into these trades. Okay. However, I think that often women are able to get in and but then they aren't able to necessarily rise up. And there are some very beautiful and unique cases in our industry where there are women CEOs. And I'm so incredibly proud of some of the glazers that the glazing companies, that have promoted women into the CEO position. Specifically Bryn Glass out of Minnesota. I think it's incredibly important for executive teams to see the benefit that women bring to an organization. There's an incredible amount of emotional intelligence that I don't know if our industry is necessarily recognizing when you promote when you promote a woman to that level. Again, there's a lot of women in the industry, but not necessarily up in the higher management. And it's going to take myself and the women in our roles as well as the men to bring these women up and have them have a seat at the table. I'm a huge believer in, as I started the podcast, Tom, I mentioned the people that have helped me along the way. And I cannot stress enough, so many men and women helped me rise to where I am. And I would not have had my board seat on the NGA, or quite frankly, even my new position, without the help of so many along the way. So now it's my obligation and my duty, and honestly, my honor, to help the women in the industry elevate themselves. And that was part of the reasoning behind the Women in Glass, is that promote opportunities for women to socialize and to help each other rise in rank in the industry. So again, there is a lot of positivity. I just see a lot of big fabricating companies, large glazer companies that have no women at the top. And I think it's time that we look at all avenues, because it's only going to help your organization to have a woman in the C-suite.
So looking at the C-suite itself, do you think the problem is that there's women that are ready to make that step up and they're being overlooked? Or do you think there's a lack of women in numbers within glass and glazing itself? And then as a third point, if either of those are true, should we be, or should, people in these companies be looking at similar trades, maybe not glass and glazing, maybe something to do with metal or HVAC or any other sort of trade that is still within AEC, and bring them into the industry? Which I recognize I've probably asked you 3 questions there. But where do you see the real problem?
Well, I think there's many, and I would say the first one, to be honest, is not that. Let's start with outside of the industry. Okay. There's not enough women going into the trades. Okay.
Yeah.
On a positive note, there are several organizations outside the industry that are working to create the future generations of America within the trades. Okay. So there are those organizations out there focusing on just going after the female population to get them into the trades. They're going into the high schools. That is incredibly important. The college track, the 4-year college degree, is not for everybody. I am a huge believer in getting your children on a track as early as possible to learning whatever they want. And a lot of these associations do go into the high schools and start talking about the trades at an early age. Okay.
Yeah.
So the National Glass Association also goes into the high schools and talks about workforce development, not only within the industry, but outside of the industry. And that is including male and female in the population. So we are making strides. So that's outside the industry. Then I would say that it's a little 50-50 about the promotion within the industry. There may not be enough women. I'm not going to say, that the industry is just overlooking them, but knowing that the industry is very male dominated, statistically speaking, that would mean that there's not necessarily a lot of females to rise up in rank. My suggestion is, when you do find the woman within your organization that you see a huge opportunity, you want to mentor that woman. And whether it's a woman mentoring or whether it's a male mentoring, it is so important. Mentorship, I can't tell you enough what it's done for me. It has literally gotten to where I am in the industry through the support of other people. Now, why can't an executive team member do the same thing within their company to try to have a program specifically for women to, really train them into a management role? And I do think the industry is changing in a really positive way. It's just a very slow to change aspect of the industry. And like I pointed out, Bryn, I'm incredibly impressed that the team as a whole made a concerted effort to find the best person for the job. And that person just happened to be a female. And so I don't want to promote a female just to have a female in the C-suite. I want to find the best person for that role. And that is critically important. We want women and people to succeed in our industry. And I think men sometimes, they're just more outspoken. And women are not. And so I think we need to help the women rise. And one of the things I take a lot of pride in is trying to educate the women of our industry in creating a personal brand and elevate yourself. So,
couldn't agree more.
You know,
could not agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head with ultimately we're looking for the best person for the job, regardless of gender, of skin color, of whatever the human being is. We're looking for the best person for the job. And one thing I will say on that, because I'm a big proponent of that, it does not matter your visual appearance has got absolutely nothing to do with how you can execute in your job. One thing I will say is, obviously, I'm not a female and I've not been in an industry before which is heavily dominated by the other gender. So one thing I can't, don't know what the right word is. One thing that I don't have an experience of is being in the workplace where I'm the only man. And there's, maybe there's 98 females in the company. And just by sheer numbers alone, I may feel slightly different in that environment, maybe uncomfortable. So that's something that I can't resonate. So I've not been in that position, but that sounds to me as if you do have a female in your, in your company and, it's minority and you're looking at one or two maybe in each company, I think, give them an opportunity, but not for the sake of it. If they've got the skills and they're the right person for the job, give them the opportunity to, as you say, rise up. And I think, we have a talent issue regardless, just in numbers in our industry. So I think it's hard enough to find, great field people, engineers, designers, PMs, estimators. We've got a severe shortage of some really good people. So at any opportunity, I think we should really be encouraging people to rise up. And I think there should be more mentorship as well in the industry. Which I think I think is lacking personally. That's just my opinion. I get to talk to a lot of people. I think the small to mid-sized businesses, they can get so wrapped up in day-to-day operation. Like, we have to keep the lights on. We've got to eat. Where's the next project coming from? And that they may not almost feel like they're afforded the time to kind of take a step back and look around and say, like, look at these 2 or 3 people. If we could get them around our best people and maybe shadow, maybe look at what they're doing and really mentor them, that would be just as valuable as a new hire of just mentoring those 2 or 3 people.
100%. I think you actually said a couple of really interesting points. Is we are all incredibly busy, and every company is running, full speed ahead, especially right now with the economy the way it is. There's a lot of concerns on the table. And so oftentimes women-led initiatives within the industry, just by virtue of being busy, kind of get put off on the side. However, going back to the other topic, it is a two-way street. And so I do encourage women, as I was mentioning about the personal branding, I encourage women to take their career in their own hands. And that is something I wholeheartedly believe in. And that is critically important for your success. So I don't expect someone to just promote you within the glass and glazing industry because you're a female. You have to be right for the job, but you also have to make a concerted effort to create an opportunity for yourself. I've always believed in creating opportunities. You had mentioned luck at the beginning, but I believe you have to create your own opportunities. And that is one of the keys to getting more women in higher ranks as well. So it is not only, I'm not just putting this on the companies, I'm also putting this on the women. And then I extend an olive branch out to all the women who's listening to this podcast. I encourage you to look at my LinkedIn profile. I encourage you to look at my website. I have a personal website to see what I have accomplished. And it doesn't happen overnight. You have to be consistent. You have to play the long game. I'm a huge believer in playing the long game. And you have to be very passionate about what you want to accomplish. And I think when I tell women to look at my LinkedIn, you can get ideas. I believe in not only promoting yourself, but promoting your company. I believe in creating a niche for yourself. And let me tell you, Tom, there are amazing women in the industry doing that right now. They are creating a name for themselves. And it is those women that will continue to rise, but I hope and I encourage all of them to pull another female up with them at the same time. So it's up to all of us to help each other to have more women successful in this industry.
Yeah, I love that. It's responsibility at the end of the day, isn't it? You're responsible for your own career and creating opportunity. And yeah, the LinkedIn stuff, I totally agree with. I think, it's taken me a decade to, really build what, my LinkedIn presence up. And, I think I'm around maybe 35,000 followers now. And I actually think the following numbers are irrelevant anyway. I think the smaller community that you can create for yourself, and as long as you're, for me, in a personal brand, if you're offering value, you're genuine, and you're not looking for something in return, I think you will create opportunities for yourself, because people are going to want to engage with you. They're going to want to listen to you. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to be around you, whether that's in person, whether that's, giving you a call on the phone, asking for advice, or, making connections, saying, hey, look, I've seen this person, maybe you two should meet. Those kind of three pillars, if you like, I think are so important in anyone trying to create a personal brand. And especially for, for me, when I look at the AEC industry and I compare it to other industries that create content and build personal brands, I think, and I hope no one takes offense at this, because I think a lot of this comes down to the conversation we were having a moment ago, that everyone just is so busy doing work that when you look at other industries create content, the content that they're creating is based on something they have to make up. So our industry builds some of the most aesthetically beautiful products, buildings, like it's there ready to be put on your LinkedIn. Like it's already done. You have built this thing. Like, and you look at some of the masterpieces across the world, it's there ready and waiting. Other industries are so more creative online than us. And I think we could do a much better job of actually getting that end product that we built and create the story around it. Again, offer value. How did the process go? What did you do? What was your role in it? Why did you get that role? What else did you do? What connections did you make along the way? What lessons did you learn? It's all there.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
It's all there. We just need to piece it all together. And I think, I do sympathize, because at the end of the day, business is revenue, and people are, they're head in the weeds of operate, build. But I think if people could take a step back for just a minute and, start to invest a little bit of time to start with in rolling their personal brands out alongside that, I think they'll see that compound interest effect of the time they've invested. It will all start coming back after time, doesn't, it's not overnight, but, after a year or two, I think everything just becomes so much easier because opportunities come to you rather than you having to continually have to seek out opportunities.
That is absolutely correct. So to agree with you and add a little bit more, it is an opportunity you have to create for yourself. And I believe in the 80-20 rule for LinkedIn. 80% of the content is work related, your personal company, industry related. 20% can be personal, and it's about giving back. It's the being genuine, being authentic. That is incredibly important. And the 80% of the business is to not only promote your company, but it's also to create more brand awareness. It's to elevate that brand. So there's so much positivity that could come from being on LinkedIn. It does take commitment. And I've had over the years, so many women call me and say, I just want to ask you some questions. I just want to get some feedback. What do you think I should do? It's quite interesting, actually. Recently, I've had folks call me out of the blue saying, Syndi, you were with a company, almost 11 years. You left them. I'm thinking of leaving my company. What do you suggest? Or I am really trying to get an opportunity at another company. I want to start promoting my LinkedIn. And I tell them, here's what you can do. I mean, it goes back to creating the opportunity for yourself. And I'm just such a proponent of helping each other along the way. And that is where I would say the majority of the women in the industry do really come together. And even, there's a lot of competition within the industry, but I've seen women really showcase how they want to help each other. And, LinkedIn is a phenomenal way specifically as a woman, not only as a man, but as a woman, to get your brand out there, to create more opportunity. And I just encourage so many to create a strategic plan, whether it's a 1-year plan, whether it's a 2, 3, 4-year plan, and have an idea of what you want to do within the industry. And I think it's important to note you don't have to be in the C-suite, but you can be a glazer, you can be installing the glass, you can be on the factory floor. There's tremendous opportunity, and I believe it is up to us as an industry to help the women understand what is out there for them.
100%. This episode is brought to you by Architectural Glass and Aluminum, otherwise known as AGA. Looking for a trusted glazing partner? AGA has been working alongside industry leaders for over 55 years, providing reliable and high-quality glazing solutions. Specializing in Class A office buildings, hospitals, airports, and higher education, AGA creates custom curtain wall systems tailored to your project needs. With a focus on collaboration and craftsmanship, AGA is here to support your next project. So visit aga-ca.com to learn more about their services and capabilities. That's aga-ca.com. Now back to this week's episode. With anything that's online, with LinkedIn, I think there's two key areas to consider when you're posting. One is if you're online and you're being, active and building your brand, you have to be good at what you do because it becomes public. And I'm certainly not perfect, over the years of running my business. I don't fill every vacancy. It's impossible to fill every single vacancy. And, I'm dealing with human beings. So it doesn't always go to plan on every job that I'm working on. But I think if you're genuine, you really care about what you're talking about, and your stuff, you need to get that on LinkedIn. And the personal stuff, like you said, the 80-20, 80% is would be I use a method that I was taught a few years ago, where you look at valuable posts, credible, and then personal. And that's kind of my methodology, is trying to add some value, show credibility, and then share something about yourself which people can relate to. I'm never selling my services or asking for business. I'm just purely trying to create value for other people to read and take a nugget from and think, that's useful, I can use that. And then they can come back and take some more, and it's all there, it's all free. And the personal stuff, I'm a huge golfer. I love being out in the sun. I love the gym. I love running. So that kind of leaks into my personal brand. That's me. I agree with everything you've said, and I think for any women that are out there that just don't know how to get started, my advice would be, one, call Syndi. Two, just start. Just do something. Even if it's this week, is changing the headline on your LinkedIn page, changing the photo, making something really clear in your banner as to what you do. Just start with that. Figure it out from there, and then Syndi will help you with the rest.
That's right.
No, I love it. I think, for you, you've obviously got the board seat on the National Glass Association. How's that been from, being at Q Railing, and then the important bits you got to do for the NGA, which I imagine with Glass Build has been a pretty busy time for you.
Yeah, talk about creating your own opportunity. Talk about, creating a path for yourself. And this is where I encourage women. I knew that coming into this industry, I could learn a lot. And that was, my first endeavor was to learn as much as possible. And along the way, I saw what the National Glass Association was doing for the industry. And I thought, wow, these folks are really making a true concerted effort to help everyone in the industry in all different ways. And I had just continued on my own personal journey within glass and glazing to learn as much as I can, to meet as many folks. And through that, I was able to, and I'm incredibly honored to sit on the board of directors. I was able to get a seat on the board, and I'm incredibly proud of being the representative for the supply chain, for the supplier. And that is really important in my heart, because the supply chain is so important, and often, or I should say the supplier is often, it's sometimes overlooked, from the big glass manufacturers, or the, top 10 fabricators, or the top 10 glazers, the suppliers. We just kind of get lumped into everybody showing a glass build, or all the vendors, And I think it's really important to speak on behalf of the suppliers. And so I take my seat on the board very seriously. I have learned a tremendous amount, and that's where I feel lucky. I feel lucky that I could learn from so many business owners. I'm learning about not only being involved in the different segments of the glass and glazing, but how you can be of service to every one of those. That's not easy. It's not an easy task. There's, the way the NGA is set up is you have folks working on the building codes, you have folks working on workforce development, you have folks working on, just the marketing, advertising, and the trade shows. So I'm just honored that I'm able to learn all about that at every board meeting. And what I have seen is the previous CEO, Nicole Harris, was phenomenal at wanting to bring in more women. And she did a spectacular job. That was part of her initiative. And I was fortunate to be able to get a seat to bring more women onto the board of directors. And I think when I'm talking throughout this entire podcast, if I could just try to get it out there to the larger companies that have much more relevance in the industry as far as marketing and brand awareness, those big companies, I think, could really benefit from promoting the women internally. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of the larger corporations that do have women, but do we know it? Because often what I see on LinkedIn, like I mentioned before, is these pictures of men in suits, cutting ribbons and out at construction sites, and there's just not a lot of women there. So I believe that, to kind of roundabout answer your question, what I've learned from being on the board of the NGA is that we could all do a little better to elevate women, including the women themselves. But I've been very fortunate to learn so much from the executive committee on the NGA board and from the individual board members themselves.
Brilliant. So the Women in Glass initiative that you've got going on in California, is that strictly for California for now? Tell us a little bit more about that, how it works. I know you kind of gave us an overview earlier in the pod, but give us a bit of an insight as to how you guys are doing.
Yeah, so the California Glass Association is a relatively new second kind of installment of the association within California. And they, as a board team, were looking at ways to have different committees, have more initiatives out there. And the idea was to have one just for women in glass. Because the president of the California Glass Association is a woman. And I think that's very important. And so this idea is to promote women within glass and glazing, helping each other rise. And the events for the Women in Glass are sometimes social, sometimes a factory tour. It is all about education. And also we have something called heart-to-heart conversations. And I think what makes this different is these are women, and I think this is really important, Tom, women that are mothers, that are full-time career women, that are the sandwich generation where they have children and they're taking care of their elderly parents. They have a lot of responsibility. Women in the industry coming to Women in Glass event have an opportunity to just kind of exhale and be able to have an open dialogue about the struggles they face at home and in the workplace. And so Women in Glass is not just promoting them in the workplace. It is also, with the heart-to-heart conversations, giving them a place to be very open about their personal struggles and to talk about, you were talking about executive committees and board, and it's all men sitting around a table at a board table. And so a lot of times these conversations lead to, I'm the only woman in the room. I'm either a sales rep or I am on the executive team, but I'm often the only woman in the room. And how do I engage with the male staff? So these heart-to-heart conversations allow women to talk about what's happening in the workplace and how they balance their home lives. Because, tonight, ironically, I have a California Glass Association event, but I also have to pick my son up from school, and what this opportunity is, it gives women to talk about how they balance everything. And sometimes it's just really hard. And this is an opportunity for the women to just be honest with each other, to help each other. It's an incredibly open environment, very non-judgmental, and we're here just to support one another.
Well, there's strength in numbers as well. Sometimes you feel like you're going through things alone. I think I mentioned to you off camera before the pod, a lot of this podcast, in my mind is I know there's owners of small glass shops out there that are going through issues. Maybe they're going through a tough time selling work, or some lumpy
Yes.
revenue, and it's to hear other people are dealing with similar problems. You don't see them, you don't hear from them, so you kind of feel like sometimes you're on an island and you're dealing with this by yourself, but you're not. There's lots of people that can resonate with what you're going through. So it sounds like that gives the women in California an opportunity to say, I'm struggling with this, and I'm sure there's 3 or 4 people in the same room that say I'm dealing with exactly the same thing, and there is that strength in numbers. Do you think, maybe not coming from you, but is that something that you think could transpire into other states and could be a bit of maybe inspiration for other states to kind of start something similar?
Yes, and I encourage, in fact, when we started posting, because this is a relatively new component of the California Glass Association, we're going to be having our 3rd event. And when we started posting, a lot of women in the different chapters across the country said, we should do this, we should do this. And I do encourage the women in other, like the Texas Glass Association, the Washington Glass, Association. There's so many chapters nationwide. I encourage you to reach out to me, and I can give you some kind of tidbits on how to start this. But it is important that you know what you're kind of taking on, and that you're here to support these women, and you are consistent. And it is built on helping one another, not only through a social aspect, but through an education aspect, through a support aspect. And I'm telling you, Tom, when I saw the first event, it was our first one, and it was a social event, and we were kind of gauging, do we really think this is going to take off? And it was in a central location, and people had to drive an hour each way. I was so impressed at the women that came out and showed up for each other. Competitors, it didn't matter. These women came out. And also what I think is important, Tom, are the different generations of glass workers, or women in glass, the different generations. And that is a topic that we are discussing, which has major significance. You have the generation of women that, I'm just going to say, kind of maybe in their 60s, that were really having a struggling time with men in the industry, and they are owners. And then you have the middle-aged women that have a lot of experience and can help a lot of these women rise up. And then you have the newer generation. And it's those women that we really want to focus on. We want to pull the younger generation up with us, because in all reality, I joke that, I'm in midlife, and I got this confidence wave in midlife. And oftentimes younger women need somebody to help them rise up, and let us help them. And that is important of this Women in Glass, is because you have the younger generation that is just trying to climb the career ladder and really just trying to do it. But if you have someone, a woman middle-aged who's been through a lot, we are such a great asset to these younger generation women, and we can help them create a path and guide them along this journey. And that is really what Women in Glass is about. It's taking the different generations and giving the experience and what they've gone through. And I think there's nothing more important than hearing it firsthand from a woman in the industry.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
They're going to resonate with that, aren't they? They're going to take confidence from that, and they'll feel safe. They'll feel like they can communicate. Yeah, I totally agree. I've seen other industries nail the mentorship piece. Yes. I know a couple of different industries. Oh gosh, might have been the pharma industry, or maybe it was something to do with biotech, is ringing a bell. I'll look it up after, and I'll send it over to you. But they'd organized a mentorship program where they had sort of like different industry experts, and this wasn't women specific, but I'm just giving an example of mentorship as a whole within the industry, whether it was pharma, biotech, I can't remember, but it's kind of irrelevant, where they would see these industry experts across the country, lots of different states, and they would look at pairing them up with younger people. It's almost like how we would treat an internship.
Oh yes, yes.
And you come in, and it's that seasoned expert's way of giving back to the industry. So they may take them on for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, and they have a certain amount of calls, and they set out a very loose structure on like a program to go through with them. But it's kind of, it is teaching, but it's also listening, encouraging, and helping them to start the wheels turning. The Women in Glass is obviously a long-term solution, but even something where, you could pair people up that we're losing a lot of people that are retiring from the industry, and that knowledge gap as well, like they're taking the knowledge with them and passing that on down. So if we had, women across the country that were, being mentored, whether it's state by state, a Women in Glass cohort, or even people that are just getting together on a Zoom, once every couple of weeks.
Well, I will tell you, so this is interesting. So I would say 90% of my experience is domestic, okay, within the United States, Women in Glass. Yeah. I have, over the years, being in the industry, I've created some really great relationships with women internationally. And a lot of it has to do when I went to Glass Tech for, 4 years. And just to be honest, via LinkedIn, I've created some amazing relationships with women in glass, and they have reached out to me. And a couple months ago, they said, Syndi, we want to start promoting on an international level, women in glass and glazing. And I was like, that's a brilliant idea. I can't take credit for it, but I said, count me in. And it is when women come together, not only in the United States, but on a global level. And I would argue that I would say on a global level, there's probably a bigger need to help women in this industry. I think it's brilliant. I think that by these women coming to me saying they want to help other women, and I think it's important to note that women's struggles are global. Women struggle a lot with the same things. And it doesn't matter where you live in this world. We're all mothers. We all are caretakers. We all work full time. We're in a male dominated industry, and so I think it's important to note that women want this. And I think if the industry can hear this, women want a seat at the table. Women want to be recognized for what they can bring to the industry, not only to their organization, but to the industry. So I can tell you firsthand on an international level, women are coming to me saying they want more opportunities. And so I say, let me help you create them. I built a platform. Let me help you create them. And it's a beautiful thing when I see over the course of time what I've created. Now it's really helping women all over the world.
So that's awesome.
Yes.
I would encourage everyone to go back and listen to an episode I did, a Facade Focus Podcast episode with Ausra Vankevičiūtė, who is the group CEO at Staticus in Lithuania. They're a big glazing contractor in Europe. She's the group CEO, and forget that she's a woman. It just individually so impressive, super sharp. Put the time in, going anywhere the business needed her to go, worked in several different roles. And, as a leader of a business, I was thoroughly impressed, and it comes through on the pod as well. I can't remember if it was maybe episode 6 or 7, but it's on the YouTube channel and the Spotify. And she's a great example of, a super impressive woman in the C-suite. So that global reach would be even more impactful. There's clearly a need for it. We're not, I think it's important as well. We're kind of talking about, the glass and glazing industry here. I think it's probably a problem across AEC globally, for sure. So I think any way that we can get the ball rolling in our industry will only do good for similar industries, I'm sure.
100%. I 100% agree with you.
I love it. This is where I usually go into the quickfire questions. So is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on to the questions, Syndi?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, Tom. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the industry being so incredibly supportive of me and everything that I have accomplished. And now it's my time to give back. So thank you, Tom.
It's absolutely my pleasure to have you. I've loved it. These questions, they'll be quick fire. There might be a couple that you may need to think about, but we'll fly through them.
Okay.
Favorite food?
Oh gosh, sushi right away.
Sports team. Do you follow a sports team?
I do not.
Zero sports. Okay. Favorite city and why?
Oh, goodness gracious. Dana Point, California, because I grew up there and it's probably one of the most beautiful places on earth.
Gorgeous. Favorite hobby?
Yoga. I love it. It's so, I do hot yoga and there's nothing more important to me for my time off.
Yeah. My wife did hot yoga before. She did take me once, but I was just a sweaty mess, so I didn't end up going back. Favorite book or movie?
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to show my age, but Grease.
Yeah.
It's still my favorite movie. There's nothing better. And I read so many books. I can't possibly pick one book because, reading is such an important pastime for me. It really, really helps me elevate myself on a personal and professional level. There's nothing better than reading a good book, whether it's a novel or whether it's a self-help type of book. There's some tremendous books out there.
Totally agree. I was just last night. I was reading the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with my daughter. The book itself. So this is how important reading is, certainly in our life. The book is my mother's book that she had when she was 7. Now my daughter's 8. We're reading the same book from there's 3 generations there. In my mind, it's wild, but that's what reading can do. You got the same physical book like that many years later. So I totally agree.
That's really what life is about. Just that moment that you just shared and how important it is it's not just the reading, it's the spending time, and it's generation after generation spending that quality time together. And I'm so convinced, as we age, it is all about those moments in life. And, there's nothing more important. And I think that it just came out. I can see it on your face. I can see it in your personality talking about the reading a book with your daughter.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What's the best bit of advice that you've ever received?
Honestly, just believe in yourself and don't let other people bring you down. And there's a lot of naysayers, and I've experienced it my whole life. I've always been a fighter. I've always believed in not giving up, and you just keep going. And I've learned that at a young age. It is all about perseverance. And I've had like I mentioned, so many great mentors, but it's really just about not giving up and believing in yourself. And that is the most important. Belief in yourself, and you will be successful.
Beautifully put. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Can they be living?
They can.
Okay. Oprah Winfrey. She, to me, is the epitome of class, knowing what she's gone through. She had so many highs and lows, and it is working your way from the bottom to the top, then to the bottom again when she started her own network, then to the top. It is about grace and perseverance with that woman that I find so admirable that I would love to have dinner with her.
I love that. I may get this wrong, so you're going to have to pull me up if I get this wrong.
Okay.
But I am sure that I've either read or listened to the point that Oprah, when she was it when she got her first gig, that she negotiated shares in the business rather than a higher salary, or maybe it was the other way around. But anyway, I think it was Oprah. I'll have to do my fact checking after this pod. But talking about believing in yourself.
Yes, and I think what I found so amazing. So she had her show, the Oprah Winfrey Show, for years and years and years, and then she wanted to create her own network, and everybody told her no, that's a bad idea. I think Ted Turner did it. And that was really, who else did it? And she's like, no, I'm going to do it. And in the beginning, it was failing and failing and failing. She kept doing it. And that tenacity and grit is what is so important about this life. And it is about, just moving forward and not giving up. And I just admire her so much for everything she's accomplished. And quite frankly, what she gives back as well. That's very, very important.
Brilliant. What's the number one thing on your bucket list?
Oh, to take my son, I have an autistic son, to take him traveling. His name is London, and to take him to London. He wants to go there, so that's on my bucket list.
Wow. If you could travel, and I need to change where this question comes in the quickfire question, because the bucket list question usually comes up with travel, and then I ask someone where they want to travel. So you can't say London. Okay. If you could travel anywhere right now, where would you go?
Still anywhere in Europe. I mean, I've been to Germany 4 or 5 times. I've been to London. I've been to Italy. I've been to France. Still, there is nothing more gorgeous. Not only culturally, but the people. There's so much beauty and authenticity about the European countries that I would go there hands down more than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, love it. And if I could give you a mulligan, which is a redo on any decision you've ever made, what would it be?
Woo! You know what? Quite frankly, I don't know if I have any. I've learned a lot of hard lessons, Tom, and I think that's the secret to life. I don't think I would have many do-overs because I've learned from all of my hard lessons, and they have provided much more strength internally, and finding a way to overcome those challenges led me to where I am today. So
I love it. What a way to end the pod. Syndi, this has been amazing, great message. You spoke so eloquently on it, and I appreciate you giving me a whole hour of your valuable time to come on and talk about this.
Well, it's been my absolute pleasure, Tom. Thank you very much, and I wish you and everyone out there an incredibly productive week.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, Syndi. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, that's it for this week's episode of the Facade Focus Podcast, presented by me, Tom Caldicott, founder and CEO of Unity Search, where I help glass and metal businesses hire the best talent and build their brand on LinkedIn. Now, I've worked across Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and North America, and I'm on a mission to help connect each facade community to give you the tools to learn and grow. Now, I'm a big believer in sharing knowledge and provoking conversation, so I hope you take something valuable from each episode that gets you thinking about how you can be better tomorrow. Remember to like and subscribe the video on YouTube and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It really helps us reach more people to achieve our goal of connecting the global facade industry. Tune in again for next week's episode, and I'll see you all there.